Child coming out at 10. My 10-year-old daughter recently told me she is a lesbian. I was surprised because she is so young. I told her that I love her no matter what. We had a long conversation where I told her that she didn't have to figure everything out now, that she was going to go through puberty in a few years and know for sure who she is sexually attracted to. She has since changed all of her screen names to something lesbian and told everyone she is gay. Let me be clear, I honestly do not care what her sexual identity is. She is my daughter and I love her. But I worry that she doesn't really know who she is yet. And unfortunately there are negative consequences to her coming out. Kids in the neighborhood have stopped coming over and I see her becoming more isolated and spending all of her time inside. Also, all of our family are strict Mormons. We left a year ago and that's not accepted. I've done a lot of reading online, but there is not a lot of articles focusing on children this young. Does anyone have any experience with this? Do I try to have her wait to identify until she's a little older? Send her to therapy to figure it out? It's hard because I don't want her to think I don't accept her, but I only want her to go through the negative consequences if she has to. Honestly, don't worry too much. Be open to conversations. Looks like you got that covered. Good on you. My point being, when children mention having crushes on the opposite gender, no one bats an eye. Which, okay, some people know it since a very young age. Some people figure it out later. And if she later feels like the label lesbian doesn't fit her anymore, it's no big deal. Some labels are temporary and that's okay. She should absolutely be free to try labels. And I'm genuinely asking, what's the point in having friends that will turn their backs on you later because of something outside your control? I feel like that would be waiting for the inevitable, but I might just be biased by my experience. Check out if there are any LGBTQ support groups in your area for kids her age. It could be a great way for her to make friends with people she knows have things in common with her. Best of luck to you and your daughter. Have a nice day. A therapist for her could be helpful if she is open to talking to a stranger, but a therapist for you could help more. In my situation, my son was going through something I had never experienced. He is very shy, and it meant a lot to him that he could talk to me when he wanted, so I went to a therapist, and they taught me how to respond to his concerns in an age-appropriate way. The way to find a good therapist is to call 3 and ask for a free half-hour by phone. Sum up the situation in 5 minutes, and then give them 25 minutes to talk and ask questions. You will see who knows their stuff. Here's how you can know when. Did you know who you were attracted to? For most people, it's usually fairly young. A 10-year-old is at the age where they can discern who they're attracted to. The difference is that queerness has been so maligned, even in subtle ways, for years that it's often taken people longer to admit their sexuality, especially if you grew up in a conservative place. And honestly, that your daughter can comfortably come out at 10 years old is the kind of world that LGBTQ activists have been fighting for forever. Maybe she'll discover more about her sexuality as she grows older. For now, she says she's a lesbian. So, she's a lesbian. As for your family, well, having been raised LDS myself, I actually don't know what to tell you. The church has certainly come a long way in being sympathetic to queer people, but it's still seriously lacking. In the end, the best you can do is let your kid know how much you love her and let her know that, no matter what your family says, that she's good just as she is. OHH. And another thing, if you want to support her, head on over to your local library and they'll have plenty of resources to help you both. Seriously, librarians are magicians. Here's how you can know when. Did you know who you were attracted to? For most people, it's usually fairly young. A 10-year-old is at the age where they can discern who they're attracted to. The difference is that queerness has been so maligned, even in subtle ways, for years that it's often taken people longer to admit their sexuality, especially if you grew up in a conservative place. Yet this is it. There are tons of kids in 5th grade around age 10 who have crushes. The world is so heteronormative these days though that when kids at that age come out, people say you can't possibly know your sexuality this young, yet don't question it at all if their child has a crush on the opposite gender. I think I knew when I was around 8. So it's not that bizarre that your daughter knows at 10. The best thing you can do is be openly supportive of your daughter and be vocal about your support to anyone who expresses bigoted views. If in a few years time she were to come out as another sexuality as you're worried about, then you cross that bridge if you get to it. But right now your daughter is telling you who she is, and you just need to believe her and support her. First, let me start by thanking you so much for being supportive of your daughter and wanting to learn more. She's an incredibly lucky kiddo to have you as a parent. Moving on, kids have come out younger than 10 years old before. It's not common, but it isn't bad either. They don't think of it as a sexuality because they are too mentally and physically young to understand what the sex part of sexuality is. In her mind, she simply has crushes on girls and not boys. The problem is the perception of others. A 10-month-old baby boy can reach for a woman to be held that isn't his mom and be called a ladies' man. But any child displaying or articulating interest in other children with the same gender is immediately seen as wrong, impure, perverted. Those innocent crushes are no longer innocent. The narrative of homosexuality has always been twisted into something vile and unacceptable, especially in religion. I was born into a Mormon family and I started to question my sexuality and gender when I was around 13, but I didn't come out until I was 19. I was forced to go to church by my mom, and being exposed to a religion and way of life that I wanted no part of was unbelievably scarring. I'm glad that you and your daughter aren't in that religion anymore. The hard part is going to be trying to get the rest of your religious family to accept her, but she already has a huge advantage knowing that you love and support her. Having just one family member on your side can often make the difference between life and death, or at the very least having better mental health. It'll be very difficult to try to explain why certain kids won't hang out with her anymore, or why family members aren't as involved, because she's so young. But the most important thing is to reinforce how much you love her and that you'll always be on her side. It will allow her to grow up being so much more confident and happy knowing she has a parent who loves her for who she is. I also want to add that her label of lesbian might change as she gets older. As she begins dating, she might start saying she's bisexual, or pansexual, or back to lesbian. And while it's very confusing as a parent, it's important for the child to choose the label or have no label at all. There are going to be a lot of people who will tell her that she'll change her mind to be straight later, or that she just hasn't met the right guy yet. But that's bullshit and very hurtful to the individual discovering their sexuality. If she dates only girls, cool. If she dates mostly girls and one boy, cool. If she dates an equal number of girls and boys, cool. The gender of the person isn't what matters. It's about who she loves and how that person treats her in return. As long as she has you in her corner, she'll be able to stand up for herself and avoid the continuous cycle of self-hatred that so many people in our community face. Thank you again for being there for her. I know exactly what it feels like to be the only LGBT person in a family of Mormons, so it makes me feel really happy knowing there's at least one kid who has a family member that accepts them. I knew I was lesbian by that age, honestly. I knew even earlier, just didn't have the term for it. 10 years later, and I'm still a lesbian. Good for you for supporting her and trusting her. That's really all that matters. I would say about the going outside part, maybe take her to walk outside more, or do some fun activity outside. That way she'll have bonding time with you. She'll know the outside world better and maybe meet some new people, which ultimately help her learn more about herself and grow. Here's some suggestions for cool places: botanical gardens, a gallery, fun day at a different city, the beach, the library. I don't know what else, but don't let her stay inside for so long. It only does damage, especially at that age. Good luck to you both. She sounds very brave. I knew I was gay as early as I can remember. When kids say they are gay, they aren't talking about sexual attraction, they are talking about who they think is cute, who they notice a little extra in class, who they want to stop by between classes. I'm sure you remember being attracted to the opposite gender when you were a little kid. You were identifying as straight, you just didn't use that word because it was the default. The same goes for gay people, except that we haven't normalized it yet. In just a couple years or sooner, If she still identifies that way, she'll make plenty of other queer friends in real life or online. Teach her healthy boundaries and model appropriate relationships. She doesn't need therapy. She just needs support. Most of my queer friends knew between 10 and 14. She doesn't know who she is yet, but that doesn't mean she's wrong or damaged to try out this label and identity. She'll try out nicknames, different styles, haircuts, whatever. The important thing is that she's loved through all of that. A lot of the time when you first realize the identity consumes you because you're desperate for validation that it's okay and you're thrilled to finally have the language to express yourself. Also, respectfully, you say that you're accepting, but you also say you don't want her to go through the negative consequences if she doesn't have to. Being gay isn't a choice. If she is gay, and it sounds like she is, or will at least stay attracted to girls in some capacity, the negative consequences come from other people, not her. The only way for her to opt out of those consequences would be to stay closeted, which, trust me, is much more painful and, well, the cat's already out of the bag. Even the mere idea she needs therapy here is a bit homophobic. Most teens can use therapy, but if your response to a gay child is they need to see a therapist, that kind of implies there's something different. Something to be fixed. Being queer is the default setting for LGBT people. I'm bi. I grew up my whole life assuming that everyone was bisexual, but adults just settle for a different gender partner so they could have babies. It was only when I was 11 that someone literally told me that this wasn't the norm, and I should pick a side. My tiny preteen brain could not handle this info. I distinctly remember thinking, Xena is a hunk. Hercules is dreamy. Why would anyone want to choose one or the other? Suffice to say, 18 years later, and I'm still bi as a duck. Sometimes kids just know. This is a hard situation and there is a lot of good advice here already. I don't want to add much. I just want to support your daughter's feelings. I knew I was straight by the time I was 10. Even in the 80s, I knew what gay and lesbian was. And I knew I was straight. I knew if I was gay, I would be wholly accepted by my family. And I still knew I was straight. I even wished I wasn't a few times over the years. But it is what it is. She's not too young to know who she is. At this point, I'd make sure she knows all the proper terminology surrounding the LGBTQ community. Give her access to a support system. There are age-appropriate groups available. Don't let her isolate. In the end, how you react is way more important than how her old friends react. Honestly, most people I know who have come out when they were older said they knew when they were kids. Sometimes it's just what happens. It seems too young because kids are usually used to hiding it for so long until they're teens or adults. But nowadays things are more normalized and accepted. It might be a phase. It might not be. All you need to do is be there for her as she figures things out. I knew around 10 to, sure. With the years she'll keep figuring it out. Or maybe not. I know people as old as 26 rediscovering their sexuality. Some others were sure since they were like 9, almost every heterosexual person I know. And some LGBT people. If that's what she feels like now, let her be. Telling her no, you're not, that won't make things better. If you genuinely don't care if she's a lesbian or not, then don't make a big deal with her. Just accept her and move on. If kids are abandoning her, that means either something else is going on, or they were just crappy friends. Teaching her to hide her identity to fit in is not a good idea at all, especially because she's about to go through puberty. Right now you just need to be there for her, not correct her. If you really want to send her to a therapist, of course don't send her to an anti-LGBT one. To be honest, going to one is always good, at any stage of life. But if you just send her there in this delicate time, she'll think you think she has something wrong in her brain. Just be careful. Sending love to both of you. I found out I was a lesbian around the age of 12 to 13, but wasn't really sure what I was, being a girl that liked girls a thing as it came with puberty. I knew the same time any other girl would have thought feeling for a boy. Has she, or is there a chance she has been around people who have touched her inappropriately? Open this conversation to her. As much as I hate to think of this, she could be having a reaction to being molested, such as unwanted touching, kissing, etc. she may think happened. I'm not okay with this. I see adults do this and they are okay with this. Maybe it is because I'm a lesbian and lesbians are not okay with this attention from males, even though most girls are. Has she had the talk yet? How informative was it? Personally, I do think going to a child psychologist would be a good idea. Treat it as a doctor's visit. No harm can come from a quick visit. There's several Christian books on how to support your child even as Christians. God loves all of children no matter what. Find a church that's accept your family and child. I have been to several in my small southern town who have gay couples with children and none of them are judged for it. Still loved by all no matter what. I say a true Christian is not going to knock down someone for being different. Love your neighbors as yourself. Plus Jesus loved all, even the people who brutally killed him still showed them grace and mercy. Just sit her down and let her know she's very young and understand there are a lot of people who will not accept her for being herself. Therapy. Someone who is LGBTQ friendly will help her be 100% herself and not feel ashamed, and will teach her to handle the bullies and future ramifications. You guys are doing amazing job supporting her and allowing her to express herself. Just sit down, ask questions, and allow her to feel herself. What makes her like girls? Be reassuring through the whole process and be that big support system for her. A lot of us wish we figured things out this young, felt safe enough to come out. You're already on the right track, so I wouldn't worry too much. Tell her that you support her. Buy her some books with queer role models. DM me if you want specifics. I sell lots of queer books, and keep having her back. If someday she figures out she isn't a lesbian, has another identity, she'll just be grateful you gave her room to explore. I knew I was bisexual in kindergarten. All my gay friends knew they were gay when they were younger than your daughter. Our gay phase is going on 5 decades. Find other parents and communities that support LGBTQ families. You can also find help online. It's huge to be supported when you're young. Being gay doesn't have anything to do with having sex at that age. But most homophobics will jump right into that, which is funny, because if a child said they were heterosexual, no one would go there. You can also stress to her that her sexual identity doesn't always have to be disclosed, which isn't the same thing as hiding it. In a nutshell, who she likes is no one's business but her own. So she is not responsible for educating the world, or even coming out to her whole family now. She can take her time and come out or not come out. Most of my own family doesn't know I'm bisexual because it's simply none of their business. They've never met any of my female partners or my male partners. So let her know you love her, and she's perfect as she is, whether she likes boys, girls, or both. Acceptance at this age is everything. Most people start figuring out their sexuality at a young age, so I don't think it's surprising that she has figured out she likes girls. I would just encourage her to be genuinely herself always. Unfortunately, life, especially in school, isn't going to be easy for her. Most kids don't come out until much later, so she will probably feel isolated, being the only gay kid at her school. All you can do is be there for her when she needs you. If you think depression might be an issue she will face, I would definitely see about counseling. Also, as she gets older, there will probably be LGBTQ groups she can join to make friends. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing for more videos.